Unbroken. Today I want to talk about a truly remarkable story of survival, resilience, and the unyielding strength of the human spirit. The story I'm referring to is Unbroken, the life of Louis Zamperini, who endured unimaginable hardships, yet never broke. Louis Zamperini's story begins in the early 1900s in the small town of Olean, New York. He was a mischievous boy, always getting into trouble, but it was his love for running that ultimately defined him. In high school, he discovered his talent for speed, going on to compete in the 1936 Olympics in Berlin, where he represented the United States. He wasn't just an athlete, he was a symbol of hope and determination. But the path he had charted for himself as an Olympian was interrupted by the outbreak of World War II. Zamperini enlisted in the Army Air Forces and his life took a dramatic turn. In 1943, while flying a bombing mission over the Pacific, his plane, the Green Hornet, was severely damaged. His crew was forced to bail out, and Louis, along with two other survivors, found himself stranded in a small raft in the middle of the ocean. For 47 days, Zamperini fought the elements: starvation, dehydration, shark attacks, and the relentless heat. He battled not only the physical toll of the ocean, but also the mental strain of hopelessness and isolation. Yet through it all, his unshakable will to survive kept him going. But his journey did not end there. Just when he thought he had survived the worst, he and his fellow survivors were captured by the Japanese Navy and sent to a series of brutal prison camps. The horrors he faced in these camps, beating, starvation, and constant humiliation, are difficult to comprehend. But what is even more remarkable is that despite the physical and emotional torture, Zamperini refused to succumb. His resilience, his refusal to break, and his sense of defiance in the face of unspeakable adversity became his weapons of survival. In the camps, Louis Zamperini encountered individuals who were determined to crush his spirit. One man in particular, known as the Bird, relentlessly tormented him. But Louis did not let his tormentors define him. He continued to resist, to fight, and even in the darkest moments, he held on to the belief that one day he would return home. His story is a testament to the power of hope, the strength of the human will, and the incredible capacity of the human heart to endure. I will explain you some important basic points which will motivate and help you in your life if you follow up them. Survival. Survival is a central theme in Unbroken, and Louis Zamperini's story offers a powerful exploration of what it truly means to survive. After his plane was shot down during World War II, Louis found himself stranded in a life raft in the vast Pacific Ocean with two other men. For 47 days, they battled the brutal forces of nature's scorching heat by day, freezing temperatures by night, and the ever-present threat of sharks lurking beneath the water's surface. But the physical challenges were only part of the battle. The men faced starvation and dehydration, with nothing but the occasional fish or rainwater to sustain them. Each day brought new trials, and as the days stretched into weeks, the hope of rescue began to fade. Yet Louis' will to survive never wavered. Despite the overwhelming odds, he continued to fight, using every ounce of his strength and resourcefulness to stay alive. It was a constant mental battle as well, one that required him to push aside despair and focus on the smallest of victories, whether it was catching a fish, finding fresh water, or simply staying afloat. His survival wasn't just a matter of physical endurance, it was a mental and emotional triumph, a testament to the power of determination in the face of hopelessness. Strength. The strength of the human spirit is vividly illustrated in Unbroken through Louis Zamperini's relentless will to endure, even in the most inhumane circumstances. Throughout his time as a prisoner of war, he faced unimaginable cruelty, starvation, and physical abuse. Yet, despite the brutality he endured in the Japanese prison camps, Louis never allowed his captors to break his spirit. His inner resilience, the refusal to succumb to hatred or hopelessness, became his greatest asset. The human spirit in Louis' case was not just about physical survival, it was about maintaining his sense of identity and dignity. Even when his body was broken, his spirit remained unyielding, a quiet testament to the immense power of mental fortitude and hope. Endurance. Endurance in Unbroken is portrayed as both a physical and mental battle that goes far beyond mere survival. Louis Zamperini's experience in the Pacific Ocean and later in Japanese prison camps tested his limits in ways few could imagine. Endurance for Louis was not just about withstanding the harsh elements or the constant physical torture. It was about holding on to hope even when it seemed all was lost. The relentless struggle to survive, whether fighting the scorching heat of the open sea or enduring brutal beatings, required a strength of character that surpassed physical pain. It was his ability to endure extreme suffering without giving up on life or succumbing to despair that kept him going, demonstrating that true endurance lies in the will to persevere against all odds. Determination. Determination is a key force driving Louis Zamperini throughout his journey in Unbroken. In the face of adversity, whether as an Olympic athlete, a downed airman stranded in the Pacific, or a prisoner of war enduring unimaginable cruelty, Louis's determination never faltered. Even when hope seemed gone, he made a conscious decision to keep going, to fight against the overwhelming odds stacked against him. His determination was not simply about survival, it was about holding on to his belief in himself, his refusal to accept defeat, and his drive to regain his freedom. This inner resolve pushed him to take actions, whether small or monumental, that helped him outlast his captors, defy death in the ocean, and keep his spirit intact through every trial. Isolation. Isolation in Unbroken is a profound theme, especially in the harrowing days Louis Zamperini spent stranded in the Pacific Ocean. Separated from the world and cut off from any sense of safety or civilization, Louis faced a deep existential loneliness that challenged him on every level. With only 2 companions for company and no means of communication or contact with the outside world, he was alone in the vast, unfeeling ocean. This isolation tested his mental resilience as he grappled with fear, despair, and uncertainty about whether he would ever be rescued. Yet, it was in this desolate solitude that Louis' strength was forged, as he had no choice but to rely on his own willpower and resourcefulness to stay alive. Isolation became both a physical and emotional crucible, forcing him to confront not only the harshness of nature but also the limits of his own psyche. Mental toughness. Mental toughness in Unbroken is a defining characteristic of Louis Zamperini's journey, allowing him to endure unimaginable hardships without breaking. While his physical body was pushed to its absolute limits, starvation, injury, and exhaustion, it was his mental resilience that ultimately determined his survival. Faced with the constant threat of death, the brutality of his captors, and the crushing despair of his circumstances, Louis developed an unyielding inner strength. He found ways to control his thoughts and emotions, refusing to let fear or hopelessness take hold. His ability to remain calm under extreme pressure, to push through pain, and to maintain a clear sense of purpose despite the chaos around him was a testament to his mental toughness. This mental fortitude allowed him to defy the odds and endure suffering that would have broken many others. Starvation. Starvation in Unbroken is one of the most harrowing challenges Louis Zamperini faced during his time stranded in the Pacific Ocean and later in the Japanese prison camps. In the raft, food was nearly non-existent, and Louis and his fellow survivors were forced to endure long periods without adequate nourishment. They fought hunger each day, growing weaker as their bodies withered from lack of food. Even when they managed to catch a fish or collect rainwater, it was never enough to sustain them fully. The constant gnawing emptiness in his stomach became a brutal reminder of his vulnerability, but it also became a motivator. Starvation tested not only his physical limits but also his mental endurance, forcing him to confront his primal instincts and cling to whatever hope he could find to continue his fight for survival. Torture. Torture in Unbroken took many forms during Louis Zamperini's time in the Japanese prison camps, where he endured unimaginable physical and psychological cruelty. The beatings, deprivation, and humiliation were relentless, designed to break his spirit and force him into submission. One of the most brutal forms of torture came at the hands of the bird, a sadistic guard who took particular pleasure in tormenting Louis. He was subjected to grueling physical punishment, forced to perform exhausting labor, and endured mental abuse aimed at stripping him of his dignity. Despite the torture, Louis refused to be crushed. His ability to endure such relentless cruelty without losing his sense of self became a testament to the unyielding strength of his spirit. Even in the face of this unrelenting abuse, Louis clung to his belief that his tormentors could never truly break him. Forgiveness. Forgiveness in Unbroken is a powerful and transformative theme, particularly in the way Louis Zamperini ultimately came to terms with the trauma he endured during his imprisonment. After his return home, Louis was haunted by the memories of the brutal treatment he suffered at the hands of his Japanese captors, especially the sadistic guard known as the Bird. Consumed by anger and hatred, he struggled with post-traumatic stress and found it nearly impossible to let go of his bitterness. However, through a process of reflection and self-discovery, especially after finding peace through faith, Louis realized that holding on to his anger was only perpetuating his suffering. In an act of profound courage and emotional strength, he chose to forgive his tormentors, including the Bird, not to excuse their actions, but to free himself from the grip of hatred and find peace within himself. This act of forgiveness became his final, most difficult but most liberating triumph. Redemption. Redemption in Unbroken is not just about surviving physical hardships, but about finding emotional and spiritual healing after immense trauma. After Louis Zamperini's release from the Japanese prison camps, he returned home a broken man, struggling with anger, bitterness, and the psychological scars of his brutal experiences. The horrors of war left him grappling with a sense of powerlessness and rage, particularly towards those who had tormented him. However, his redemption came not through vengeance, but through forgiveness and faith. It was only when he embraced the teachings of faith, particularly through his involvement with a Christian revival meeting, that he found a path to healing. The process of forgiving his captors and letting go of his anger allowed him to reclaim his life and his peace of mind. Redemption for Louis was about releasing the burden of his past and finding a new sense of purpose and inner freedom. The will to survive. The will to survive is the core force that drives Louis Zamperini throughout Unbroken, propelling him through the darkest and most painful moments of his life. Whether stranded in the vast Pacific Ocean with little hope of rescue or enduring the brutalities of Japanese prison camps, Louis' determination to live never faltered. His body and mind were pushed to their absolute limit: starvation, exhaustion, injury, and isolation, but his unwavering desire to survive kept him going. It was a force that transcended mere instinct. It was a conscious decision to refuse defeat, to fight against every obstacle, and to cling to the belief that one day he would find freedom. This relentless drive, powered by sheer grit and hope, made Louis capable of overcoming the impossible, showing that the will to survive is often stronger than the circumstances that seek to destroy us. Hope. Hope in Unbroken serves as a vital lifeline for Louis Zamperini, especially during the most desperate moments of his journey. While stranded in the Pacific Ocean, hope was the small flicker that kept him going despite the overwhelming odds against him. With each passing day of starvation, dehydration, and the constant threat of death, hope became his anchor. Even when the chances of rescue seemed slim and the agony of the endless sea took its toll, Louis held on to the belief that survival was possible. Later, in the Japanese prison camps, hope manifested in the form of mental resistance, refusing to let the cruelty of his captors extinguish his inner light. It was this hope, often faint and fleeting, that fueled his will to endure, to keep fighting, and to believe that one day freedom would come. Hope, though fragile at times, was an unshakable force that sustained him through every trial. Transformation. Transformation in Unbroken is a powerful shift in Louis Zamperini's character, where his experiences of suffering ultimately lead to personal growth and healing. After enduring unimaginable physical and emotional hardships during his time in the Pacific and in Japanese prison camps, Louis returned home a man deeply scarred by anger and trauma. However, his transformation began when he sought a new path through faith. Initially consumed by hatred for his captors, especially the bird, he found a sense of peace and emotional release after experiencing a spiritual awakening. This transformation was not just about healing from the wounds of war, but about changing the way he viewed his past, his tormentors, and himself. By embracing forgiveness and letting go of his bitterness, Louis found a profound sense of freedom that allowed him to live a life of peace and purpose, marking a shift from the broken man he once was to someone whole again. Overcoming adversity. Overcoming adversity is a central theme in Unbroken, and Louis Zamperini's journey exemplifies the extraordinary resilience of the human spirit. Throughout his life, especially during the brutal trials of World War II, he faced nearly insurmountable challenges, surviving a plane crash, enduring 47 days of drifting on the open sea, and suffering unimaginable torture in Japanese prison camps. Yet with each obstacle, Louis demonstrated an incredible ability to persevere. His capacity to confront and rise above these hardships was not just about enduring pain, but about maintaining his dignity and defiance in the face of extreme cruelty. His story shows that adversity, while often overwhelming, can be met with an inner strength that allows one to not only survive but also emerge stronger, more determined, and more purposeful. Unbroken strength. The strength in Unbroken refers to Louis Zamperini's extraordinary ability to withstand and overcome relentless physical and emotional challenges without breaking his spirit. Despite enduring extreme hardship, starvation, torture, isolation, and the horrors of war, Louis' strength remained intact. His resilience wasn't just about physical endurance, it was about his refusal to let the brutalities he faced strip him of his identity, his hope, or his will to survive. Even in the darkest moments, when everything around him seemed to crumble, Louis clung to an inner strength that refused to be shattered. This unbroken strength was rooted in his determination to survive, his fierce defiance against his tormentors, and his belief that he could overcome even the most crushing circumstances. Unbroken self-promises. The self-promises in Unbroken are a testament to Louis Zamperini's inner resolve and commitment to never give up, no matter how dire the circumstances. Throughout his unimaginable struggles, whether fighting for survival in the Pacific Ocean or enduring brutal torture in the Japanese prison camps, Louis made silent promises to himself, promises to keep going, to remain strong, and to never allow his captors or the hardships to define him. These self-promises became a guiding force, a mental pact that helped him navigate the darkest moments. They weren't grand declarations, but simple, steadfast commitments to hold on to hope, maintain his dignity and resist the physical and psychological toll that sought to break him. These promises allowed him to stay focused on survival, even when everything seemed to be falling apart. Unbroken self-confidence. Self-confidence in Unbroken is exemplified by Louis Zamperini's unwavering belief in his own ability to survive and persevere, even when faced with unimaginable odds. Throughout his harrowing journey, whether stranded in the vast ocean or enduring the horrors of Japanese prison camps, Louis relied on a deep-rooted sense of self-assurance that he could endure whatever came his way. This confidence was not born from arrogance, but from a quiet trust in his strength, resilience, and resourcefulness. Even in moments of extreme pain and despair, Louis refused to give in to self-doubt or hopelessness. His self-confidence was a mental shield, enabling him to push through the darkest of times, knowing that if he kept fighting, he could make it through to the other side. Unbroken self-trust. Self-trust in Unbroken is seen in Louis Zamperini's ability to rely on his instincts and inner strength throughout his traumatic experiences. Stranded in the Pacific Ocean, facing starvation and the relentless threat of death, Louis had to trust himself to make critical decisions, whether it was finding ways to catch fish, navigate the vast sea, or keep his fellow survivors going. Later, in the brutal prison camps, his self-trust enabled him to withstand the cruel torture and deprivation without breaking. He trusted his ability to endure physical pain, to resist his captors, and to maintain a sense of dignity amidst unimaginable suffering. This deep-rooted belief in himself, even when the external world was falling apart, became a crucial pillar of his survival, proving that when everything else is uncertain, trusting one's own strength and judgment can make all the difference. Unbroken positivity of mind. Positivity of mind in Unbroken is reflected in Louis Zamperini's ability to maintain an optimistic outlook even in the most dire situations. Amidst the endless suffering in the Pacific Ocean, where food and water were scarce, and later in the cruel Japanese prison camps, Louis' mind remained focused on small victories and moments of hope. His ability to find even the slightest reason to believe that survival was possible, whether through the thought of his family, the possibility of rescue, or the simple act of resisting his captors, was a testament to his mental resilience. This positivity wasn't about ignoring the pain or pretending everything was fine. It was about choosing to focus on the possibility of overcoming adversity, even when surrounded by darkness. Louis' unwavering optimism in the face of unimaginable hardship kept him grounded and fueled his will to survive. Unstoppable journey. The unstoppable journey of keeping going on in Unbroken is embodied in Louis Zamperini's relentless determination to push forward no matter the obstacles. Whether drifting in a lifeboat for 47 days with little hope of rescue, enduring physical torture in a Japanese prison camp, or facing the profound loneliness of his circumstances, Louis never stopped fighting. Each day brought new challenges, yet his inner resolve kept him moving forward. His journey was not about avoiding suffering, but about confronting it head-on, choosing to survive even when it seemed impossible. This unstoppable drive wasn't fueled by the expectation of immediate relief, but by a deep-rooted commitment to endure, to resist, and to never surrender to despair. Despite every setback, every injury, and every moment of hopelessness, Louis' journey proved that even in the most crushing of circumstances, the will to keep going can be a force that propels you through. In conclusion, Louis Zamperini's story in Unbroken serves as a powerful reminder of the incredible strength of the human spirit. His journey is a testament to resilience, determination, and the unwavering will to survive, even in the face of the most unimaginable hardships. From his time as an Olympic athlete to his harrowing experiences in the Pacific and Japanese prison camps, Louis demonstrated that the mind and heart, when steadfast, can triumph over even the most brutal circumstances. His story of survival and transformation offers not just inspiration, but a lesson in the power of hope, forgiveness, and the unyielding pursuit of personal redemption. Louis Zamperini's life is a living example of how, no matter the challenges we face, the ability to rise, keep going, and ultimately heal lies within us all.